This is my final project for KSP 643, Instructional Design. The evaluation and analysis of Merrill's 5-star model. Dr. Werner David Merrill was born March 27, 1937. He received his bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University in 1961. He also received a master's and PhD from the University of Illinois in 1964. Dr. Merrill has taught at the college level in many states over the past 4 decades. He's well known as a data consultant, educational psychologist, and educational technology leader. In 1989, he was selected as Person of the Year in Educational Technology by Educational Technology magazine. His list of accomplishments, honors, and professional publications is extraordinary. Dr. Merrill acknowledges innovations in technology. However, he's more concerned how educators use what's innovative. He's focused more on the principles and not as much on the theoretical explanations. He wants real-world, problem-based lessons to be effective, efficient, and engaging. He refers to this as the E3 learning. Merrill's 5-star model. The first principles of instruction state that learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving a real-world problem, existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner, new knowledge is applied by the learner, and new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. You can see this on the diagram on the left. He feels that we need to show people what we are trying to teach them. When students are informed, they are going to be more accomplished and they are going to be willing to accomplish something they were not able to do prior to participating in the lesson. They will become more motivated. They need an opportunity to practice what they've learned, opportunities to apply themselves. The lessons need substance to keep learners motivated. The motivation comes from learning, when students are unable to do something they weren't able to do before. Core principles of instruction require learners to demonstrate what they've learned about a real-world problem. Merrill feels that many of today's online courses violate his basic principles of instruction. However, not all courses. His goal is to have educators use his model so that students have genuine opportunities to learn. The first principles of instruction contain core elements also found in the adding model and Gagne's 9 events of instruction. The first principles of instruction have problem, activation, demonstration, application, and integration. This correlates closely with analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation, and also Gagne's 9 events of instruction, where you gain the attention of the learner, inform learner of objectives, stimulate recall of prior learning, present stimulus, provide guidance, elicit performance, provide feedback, assess performance, and enhance retention. I found it interesting that Dr. Merrill considers Robert Gagne to be one of the 3 most influential people in his life. He actually told Dr. Gagne that his first book, Conditions of Learning, was the book that he wanted to write. He also read Dr. Gagne's manuscript before it was published in 1965. In 1989, Dr. Gagne and Dr. Merrill actually sat down for an all-day conversation to discuss their models at Utah State University. The event drew a crowd of over 200 people. The entire event has also been edited into 4 90-minute videos. Merrill insists that the event was a conversation and not a debate. They went on to be great friends. I also feel that Dr. Merrill's 5-star model addresses learning in a way that requires learners to correlate the information with real-world problems. I like that. Merrill's 5-star model. Here's how I would incorporate Merrill's 5-star model into a lesson. Principle number 1 states learners are engaged in solving a real-world problem. For example, learners must connect multiple electronic devices to a flat panel television to view content from DVDs, VHS tapes, and a computer. You can see which materials are needed. Televisions, remote controls, batteries, DVD players, VCRs, Mac Mini computer, HDMI cables, RCA cables, and a power strip. It's important for learners to understand not only the real-world problem that they are going to be faced with, it's also important for them to understand which tools they are going to need to complete the objectives. Principle number 2 states existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. For example, learners understand that various wires must be connected to transmit video, sound, and data between various devices. Learners also know that electricity is needed to power the devices. The experiences most individuals have had with televisions usually have taken place from a chair or a couch. This lesson will require them to recall which pieces of hardware are needed to broadcast images and sound to a television screen. Principle number 3. New knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. Learners will be shown the difference between composite analog and HDMI digital cables and where they need to be connected, line in, line out, HDMI in, etc., to the devices that are being used. They will also be shown how to switch the input devices on the television using the remote control. Principle number 4. New knowledge is applied by the learner. For example, learners will work in teams to use the supplied devices and cables to connect multiple devices to a flat panel television. Their combined efforts will result in the broadcast of televised content. Now, using the results of the learner's applied learning, I will be able to assess if the lesson objectives were met. Principle number 5. New knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. For example, learners may use their skills to create environments both at school and in their homes which will allow them to view content from various electronic devices. They will also have opportunities to grow their knowledge to accommodate for changes and enhancements that are made to audio-video devices. Dr. Merrill feels that it's important for students to collaborate and critique one another. He's currently working on another article with Dr. Michael Allen for the next issue of Trends and Issues. Now, assessing this lesson, there will be a pre-assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment. The pre-assessment, students will answer questions as a group pertaining to various audiovisual devices. Students will be asked to go into detail as to where they observed the device and what kind of environment they observed it in. The teacher will also share experiences with their audiovisual devices, addressing the same questions they were asked to answer. An informal survey about students' experiences will also be conducted. There will also be a formative assessment. Students will be formatively assessed on the information they include in their documentations and presentations. They must address what materials are needed to connect audiovisual devices to a television monitor. Student behavior will also be observed throughout the duration of the lesson. Constant feedback will be offered to the students, giving them direction and insight as to how they are completing their assignment. And a summative assessment will be given after the students complete their assigned tasks. Their final products, which will be a word process document and a presentation, it will be assessed using a rubric. Students will also be asked to reflect on their experiences with setting up various audiovisual devices. For example, are independent power supplies needed to power the device? Did you see what you expected? Please explain. What can people do to make the process of setting up and disassembling audiovisual equipment less complicated? The experiences that one student have throughout the lesson may differ from that of their peers. And why may one person's or group experience differ than that of the other individuals in the group? I use many different references for this lesson. And also, here's the rubric for the criteria. Students participated in whole group and small group discussions. Students identified the various components needed to connect devices to a television monitor. Student conveys their knowledge of the lesson into their document and presentation. And student will share their knowledge of audiovisual devices and how they are connected to television monitors. They'll be given the status of either a beginner, developed, proficient, or exemplary student. Now, moving on to resources. Resources were gathered throughout the internet and using the web, and also by using the book that we had in class, Trends and Issues in Instructional Design and Technology, 3rd edition. Thank you very much for reviewing my final project. KSP 643 is a very beneficial class.